Thank you. I hereby inform the committee and audience members that this meeting is being recorded. We'll do the roll call. I don't see Dave. Jessica?
Here.
June?
Here.
Lisa?
Here.
Mike? Not here. Randy?
Here.
Susan? I don't see. Tom?
We have to.
And I am here, so we have a quorum. Our next scheduled meeting of the school committee will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, March 20th. For the consent agenda, we have approval of minutes, accounts payable warrants, payroll warrants, in a series of donations.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Lisa and Jess. So this is for approval of the consent agenda. Jessica?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next, we have public communications. We had one person sign up, and that's Miss Veronica Kell from Townsend. And you should be able, Veronica, to unmute yourself and just give us your name and a full address, and then you'll have a few minutes.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Veronica Kell, 68 Meadow Road, Townsend. I'm a selectman in Townsend, and I just wanted to note that I don't know if we're able to speak later in the meeting, but the draft budget in the packet doesn't reflect the letter that was sent by the Board of Selectmen and the TA. So if in fact that is the budget, and I don't know if you're making changes to it today, Townsend will require an override for that, if I'm reading the budget correctly. So I just wanted to invite the school committee members to our March 28th Board of Selectmen meeting because we will need to have plans for rolling out an override to the community. And that is my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica. Real quick, what time is that meeting on the 28th?
It is at 6. Our meetings always start at 6 p.m., but we would set a time that we'll work with our school committee members and set a time for that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
When it works for everybody.
Great. Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on to, I think that was the only person that had signed up for public comment. So we'll move on to reports and information items. I don't have anything that's outside of other items on the agenda, so I'll turn it over to Superintendent Morgan for his report.
The same with me, Chairperson. It's just the other items on the agenda for me tonight as well.
Okay. Excellent. First item under new business, we have overnight travel requests to approve a baseball trip. So I think we have Mr. Dawson on to speak to that.
Yep, I'm right here. Thank you. Yeah, our baseball team is requesting to travel down to the Cape. I know the original document that I had sent that Coach Beauregard had put together was initially asking for Friday and Saturday night, but after speaking with him today, he did some thinking over the weekend, and they're gonna hopefully leave Saturday morning, and it'll just be a one-night trip. They're gonna travel down to Mashpee, play 2 scrimmages on Saturday afternoon, stay Saturday night, have another scrimmage on Sunday, and then travel back on Sunday evening. They're staying at or hopefully staying at a resort conference at the Hyannis Center, 35 Scudder Avenue. Each student would have their own bed. They have 3 beds in a room, whether it be a sofa bed or a cot. There'll be 3 chaperones there. All 3 are coaches that have been on our staffs before and paid coaches and quarried and all those things. Coach Beauregard, they did it last year. They played in a tournament in Wilmington. It's pretty much the same deal. They have, they'll take our vans down there, our minibus and our van, and then they have a restaurant right there in the hotel, so they won't have to be going anywhere to get food or anything like that. They're just going to order things and sandwiches and whatnot for in between scrimmages, and then at night they'll eat right there at the hotel. I don't know if there's any questions or anything that I missed or.
Any questions from anybody on the committee? I just have a question. If I think it does say parents are welcome to attend, I assume parents would have their own separate rooms from all students.
Yeah, they would get their own rooms. They blocked them out, and I should have mentioned this before. It's all fundraised money. Coach already fundraised the money to do it. It won't come out of our budget at all. He did a youth clinic where he volunteered his time on a few Saturdays here. There was 5 of them. I think at least one of them got snowed out, and one was the weather one. They're going to make a few of them up over those 2 days over April vacation, but they've already fundraised all the money to pay for everything that they need. But yeah, they blocked off rooms for the parents to be able to get their own rooms if they want them. Our students and coaches have been paid for by that fundraised money, and all the students and chaperones are all on the same floor, so they're all right there. He's got that whole area blocked off.
Excellent.
The drop date, I believe, is the 24th. We have to tell them yes or no by, or we get stuck paying for the rooms.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Last minute questions, comments from anybody in the committee? If not, I will take a motion to approve the NMRHS baseball team's overnight trip to Cape Cod for the team building and scrimmage games from, actually it's Friday, right?
Yeah, we had originally put Friday, but talking today, it's going to change. It's just going to be Saturday night into Sunday. So the first, I believe, is Saturday.
The first. Yep.
They'll come back the second. Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's Lisa and June. Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none. Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan.
Looks like she's still trying to
Okay.
connect.
All right, Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that'll be 6 with 1 abstention. Unless Susan, are you connected to audio? Not yet. All right. All right. So that passes. Good luck to the baseball team.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. One thing I did forget to mention. So this is was posted as a joint meeting between the school committee and town boards, and we can call the town boards portion of this meeting to order when we get to the budget discussion coming up very shortly. So I neglected to mention that at the beginning. Next up under new business, we have middle school robotics advisor stipend. We have Mr. Webster on. Yes. Mr. Webster, you good to go or trying to unmute? There we go.
I can't hear anybody. If it's my turn up, I apologize. I just lost audio.
Oh. Can you hear us?
Should I disconnect and then try to connect again, Mr. Hanson?
Yes, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't hear anything. Sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll give him a minute to pop back in. Real quick, I guess, Lisa, any update on accelerator repair?
No.
I don't have any update from the high school building committee, which is still lingering out there. June, is there any quick update on the Ashby building committee?
Just the next meeting is tomorrow. Last week we postponed due to the storm, so scheduled tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you. Tom, any update on communications?
No on communication, no on negotiation. We're good.
All right. And Mr. Webster is back. Can you hear us now? Yep. Still can't hear us? Nope.
I don't know if people can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yep. We can.
You all can hear me?
Yes.
I just reconnected and I can't hear anybody. I know that I'm on the agenda as far as the robotics club. I can try to maybe through my phone, perhaps, but it has me, I'm unmuted, and I don't know if I'm having a problem with my laptop. If I can tell by head nods, if I can continue and just discuss as far as I can see the head nods. Thank you, Robin. As far as the club, I know that we're on the agenda as far as the opportunity to have a stipend for the robotics club. We are in its 7th year under the leadership of Rebecca Audette, who is a 7th grade science teacher of ours, and she has led a very successful program for those 7 years. They're currently working on a project where basically they put together a board that they're given specific instructions and different directions to put together, and then they participate in tournaments with other schools, middle schools, and high schools. And the students do very well. 12 to 15 kids that participate, and Ms. Audette works with the students and relies on help from their families as far as pitching in a little bit here and there so that they can participate in tournaments and represent our school very well. And so we had requested, I heard a noise. I'm sorry, but so hence our request for the club for the stipend. Regardless, Ms. Audette has continued to lead our kids and do very well. So that's why we wanted to put the request through. I'm really happy to see that there's an opportunity we could do this. I thought I might have to wait another year, but that's why we're putting for the request. So I don't know if I can check the chat to see if maybe that's how I can communicate with everybody. Actually, don't see a chat here.
Jason, you still can't hear us?
Now I can hear Mr.
Okay.
Hanson.
There we go. Awesome.
Woo!
Mr. Webster, you fixed it. Okay, so yeah, we'll open it up to questions. Randy, go ahead.
Question, I'm not sure if Mr. Webster would know it or if Brad can answer it, is just, is there a robotic club also at Nissitissit? And I guess we have a robotics club at the high school, I believe, that already has a stipend. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure of details as far as the clubs at either the high school or middle school. Either the high school or Nissitissit Middle School. I want to say no. I haven't heard Rebecca talk of a club at Nissitissit, but I'm not sure.
I would also have to check on that.
Okay.
I know that there is, as far as the contract, I know the teacher's contract, I know it includes a stipend for robotics, I believe is at high school level currently. Whether or not it's being used right now is what I'm not sure of.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's been a while since I've looked up our criteria and what the criteria in the contract for adding new stipends. So I'm not sure if Craig or Brad, if you're up to date on that information. That's the only thing I think this is very much worthwhile. Thank you, Ms. Audette. I know she's been leading robotics and some other things at the middle school for quite a number of years. My kids have gone through a number of different things with her. I just want to make sure that we're following a protocol on how we approve and the process that it goes through.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Haynes?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there is a robotics club at the high school, and that, as far as I know, that is running this year. I don't believe there's one at the other middle school. There is some robotics related things, but I'm not sure that there's an actual after school program for that. And I believe that the policy or the procedure for adding stipends is in the teacher's contract to bring it to the superintendent and then to the school committee for approval.
And if it helps, I just got confirmation from the NMS administration. They currently do not have a robotics club after school.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Webster. Any other comments, questions from the committee? All right. Randy?
Sorry, one more. Just I want to make sure, as far as the amount of time that Ms. Audette is putting in, I'm sure it's quite a bit, is meeting the criteria that we normally have for a stipend position for our club. So I believe there is a certain amount of time that we usually look at that is needed to supervise a club.
Mm-hmm. I do know that they meet once a week at the very least in their competitions that they have enrolled in. I can get more details for you for specific dates, but they are, and so the work that they do encompasses at least at the minimum, once a week during the course of the school year for the majority of it.
All right, seeing no other questions, I'll take a motion if folks are agreeable that the school committee approve the middle school robotics advisor stipend position with an annual rate of $895 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Tom and Jessica. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Jessica?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Susan? Did we lose Susan? We lost Susan. Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Webster.
Thank you very much. It's exciting.
You're welcome. All right. Moving on to, I think we left off with subcommittees for finance and talking about the FY24 budget discussion and adoption. Again, as we did post this as a joint meeting, if other boards, town boards had posted this as a meeting, then we can have them call their portions of the meeting to order if they need to do that. And Robin, I assume we need to let them promote them to panelists to let them talk.
Do you want me to post to promote them now?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I only know the Purple names. I don't know anybody else.
Yeah, I didn't get any responses from I only got a response from Pepperell. So look, I will promote who I know, and then we can raise the hand.
Perfect.
And Miss Keller's on as well still.
Yep. We'll get her as well. All right. So while Robin is doing that. I don't know, Lisa, if you want to just give a high-level update, and then we'll let folks, if they need to, call their meetings to order, and then we can get into the discussion.
Craig, do you want to, can you hear me? This is Susan.
Yep, I can hear you now.
I just wanted to make sure I figured out how to unmute.
Awesome. Welcome back.
Do you want me to make the motion, Craig?
If you want to start with that, and then we can have the discussion, or if you just, I don't know if you want to give a summary as to where we're at while we're promoting folks to the meeting.
Why don't I just make the motion and then we're in it. Move that the school committee adopt an FY 2024 operational budget of $56,560,939, an FY 2024 transportation budget of $4,158,363, FY 2024 debt service budget of $4,241,313, and to use these funds to calculate the FY 2024 school assessments for member towns as required by statute. In addition, the committee authorizes the use of $2,045,000 from the excess and deficiency account to offset the FY 2024 operational budget. This is a 6.27% budget increase.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Superintendent Morgan, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I did just want to make the committee aware that we did receive some news late this afternoon, actually, that we actually got a good number from GIC for our retirees, which would reduce our budget by about $200,000. So I'm not sure if the committee, I mean, it doesn't impact whether or not an override would be necessary for this budget anyway, but wasn't sure if the committee wanted to amend the amount. There's also still some hope that we may get some help from the statewide increase of 14% on out-of-district tuitions. Again, that is a statewide increase, and there's still some hope there that we may be getting some additional monies from the state to help offset that increase. So again, this is new information today. We did finally get some good news, but wasn't sure if you wanted to amend the motion based on that $200,000 reduction or keep it as is.
Well, this is Susan. We always have the opportunity to lower the budget and revote in the future, right? We just can't raise it.
Right.
And Lisa, I just wanted to confirm, all members of the finance subcommittee voted to support this amount, right? Made this recommendation to the school committee?
Yes, this is a recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
And I honestly don't see the amount as being overly important at this point. It is a reduction that we'll be able to put into the FY24 budget, but again, it's not going to impact what the towns have asked for.
Right. And it's we're probably going to get more information that would as time goes on, that may impact what we do.
Yes, hopefully.
I don't personally see the need to amend the motion because I don't think it has any long-term impacts if we do.
I would agree.
Craig, I don't know if you see Andrew has his hand up. I did promote him to panelist, but I think that they have to accept.
Okay, I can just click allow to talk on that, I guess. All right, Andrew should be good.
Hi, it's not clear that I'm on the panel or visible to folks, but thought I had my screen on. And I'm assuming you guys can hear me at this point.
Yes, we can.
Now we can't. Andrew, there you go.
Makes a lot more sense now, being promoted to panelist. Thank you. So a question for the school committee or the superintendent is, how does this vote look percentage-wise from the February 6th budget? Real rough numbers, it looks like about a 5% reduction. Is that a fairly accurate assumption?
Lisa or Brad or Nancy?
From the February numbers, Andrew?
The February 6th budget is the only one we've seen.
It's a very slight reduction. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I believe February was 6.53%. But I can go back and look if you give me a moment.
Yeah, I can pull it up too, Brad. I think it was it 634 maybe? That's what's coming to mind. Well, I can pull it up too.
It was a very small reduction though. It's not
significant.
No, it's negligible.
Okay. So is the school committee then recommending that they move for tax overrides?
I would assume that in order to avoid cutting town services, that would be the way the town would need to proceed. You know, we would need to proceed that way in order for the town revenues to cover municipal resident revenues and school revenues. Municipal services and school services.
Correct. Well, only speaking for Pepperell, not including debt exclusions, we have about $1.2 million in total growth. Town's taking a portion of it, the regional tech school's taking a portion of it, and that leaves roughly half of that money for North Middlesex's use. This reduction is still around a $2 million increase for Pepperell. And we've got maybe 600,000, 550, 600,000. So like that budget that you're motioned for tonight would not be able to be funded by Pepperell without a tax override.
Yes, we are aware that it would probably cause the need for an override in at least some of the towns.
That's my only question or comment. Wanted to make sure the school committee was aware of what they were moving.
Did I answer your question, Andrew?
Yes.
Randy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Andrew, yes, thank you for that reminder. It is something that we were going to be discussing. The motion was just made, and so we haven't gotten into the discussion as far as with this budget, what it would mean to the three towns. But yes, we are aware that it may facilitate working with the towns on a Prop 2.5 override.
June? You're muted, June.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any Ashby leadership on at the moment, but I have also been told that Ashby would need to do an override. Ashby may need to do an override either way, so the school budget just kind of compounds that and makes it a little bit higher than desired. I just wanted to put that out there. And I wanted to ask, besides some of the state numbers coming in better, what reductions were made to the budget from the Finance Committee?
This didn't have any reductions, is that correct, Brad?
We've had some very minor reductions just in some line items. Again, it was nothing significant. My computer's not cooperating with me as I try to find the February budget, but I believe it's opening up now so I can give you an idea as to what it was exactly on the 19th. Just give me one moment, please. It's opening. And this is from the February budget message. Nancy, I don't know if you were able to find it, but I am opening it now, just scrolling down to the message part.
I had 6.34%. And I don't know if it's helpful, but I could do a quick summary as to what changed since then.
Yes, Nancy, that's what I have too, 634. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
And June, is your concern that we just aren't making sure we haven't made any drastic cut in student services?
Sorry, I forgot to mute again. Hit the wrong button. Yes, that, but also, I typically, when the budget is initially rolled out and we get feedback from the towns, there's a good effort made to try to reduce it, especially if that is the feedback from the towns. So it doesn't sound like too much has changed. The other thing is, I believe at one of our previous meetings, we asked to see the budget with some options, with perhaps what it would look like if there were more cuts. If there were other areas that could be cut, how it would affect the budget and how it would look, just to have some options to look at.
So that's not something that we've discussed in depth at the Finance Committee level, only because it's very difficult to put out what cuts would look like without creating what would likely be a significant issue among staff. But what I can share is that in all honesty, that in order to make this budget work for all three towns, we would, and avoid an override, we would have to reduce the budget by $3 million, which would be, that would have a significant, to say the least, impact on the way the school district is able to operate. Because outside of staffing, there's very little place to reduce. And it would really eliminate our ability to make really cuts anywhere else other than staffing. So $3 million, that being said, is obviously a significant amount of staff. And again, although this is an increase, I will still say that this is what amounts to be a level service budget, because we have IEPs that we have to maintain compliance with. We have a class size policy that we have to maintain compliance with, and we have some significant post-COVID needs. Again, whether it be out of district placement, significant increase in special education testing requests, and social emotional needs that we need support for within our schools. So the additional positions, which have definitely had an impact, are not positions that are impacting North Middlesex alone. That's happening statewide, likely nationwide, but I know for a fact it's happening at least across the Commonwealth.
Ms. Kell?
Hi, thank you. I guess my question is, because to maintain our municipal services, which are pretty bare bones in Townsend to begin with, we absolutely need an override to support this budget. So my next question is, do you anticipate needing an override next year as well? And do you think, if the answer to that is yes, do you think it's possible or even probable that an override in the towns will pass 2 years in a row.
So I actually do think it's possible that we will need an override next year as well, unless something changes with the state funding formula, unless something changes with the way that the state responds to question 1 that had just been passed, but that is not something that will impact us this year. I think the big challenges that we have, in addition to carrying this increased need for staff that we have forward, is the fact that, and I've shared this at the budget summits that began in October, is that we have 5 collective bargaining agreements that are expiring on June 30th of 2024 that we'll have to negotiate, likely beginning this spring and summer, all of next year, and that will take effect in FY25. And then on top of that, we have a school transportation contract that is expiring on the same date, June 30th, 2024. And last time we had that, we had a 3-year contract that equaled out to be about a 22% increase over 3 years. It's going to be dependent on what happens with health insurance, both for our current employees and retirees, and also what our special education transportation budget looks like, and whether or not there'll be any additional increases on out-of-district tuitions moving forward, whether they're collaborative based or private schools. So to answer your question, Veronica, I do think it's possible. It's something that has come up in conversation, and it's certainly a concern.
Veronica, this is Susan. I think both are a hard sell. A larger one this year and one next year would be a very hard sell. So I don't have a crystal ball, but that's just my sense.
I would agree with that.
Randy?
As far as next year, there is no crystal ball. We don't know. We can anticipate costs again going up, and with the contracts coming up for renewal, and looking around the state on where contracts are being settled, it is a real possibility that we're going to have another large increase next year. Looking at this budget this year, if you take a look at the summary, there really are 3 lines that are drastically affecting how high our increase is, and that is the out-of-district schools. We've talked about that. The costs, especially for the private schools, have gone up tremendously, and that our budget is going up 15% in that area. We have 10%, an overall 10% increase in the insurance and retirement line, and the debt of 7.63% increase. These are not areas that we have control over, that we can say, oh, we're just not going to do some of them, like we can with personnel. Not that cutting personnel is anything good for the district, but that's at least something we have control over. So looking at this budget, I just don't see a place where we can compensate for these costs that are not in our control without drastically affecting the education and the students. Everybody knows that 2.5% doesn't support the town growth as far as the costs or the schools over a long period of time. It's unfortunate that we have the state's portion of our budget going up 0.5% each year, which only means that the towns, which are already strained with only 2.5% increase, trying to support the cost both of the town and the schools, now have that additional amount that they need to support because the state's portion did not go up even close to 2.5%. It's a tough position to be in, but I'm not sure that the cuts that we would need to make this year in order to avoid trying for an override is going to be anything good for the district. It only puts us in a place next year with having to restore some of the services as we find out that we can't sustain the cuts that we've made, making the override next year even larger, if it comes to that. And not knowing what we're going to get from the town, it's so hard to really predict and to be able to count on anything from next year. So I am for going forward with this budget and putting it forth to the towns to see if they would support an override to help support all of the costs that are increasing. And then next year, see what happens. Hopefully we have some really, really, really good news from the state with that question 1 or their formula for the foundation budget changing.
I think we can only look at 1 year at a time. It's just too far in the future to.
Yeah, there's so many
project
variables
and-
for next
yes.
year.
Right.
Thank you, Randy. Ms. Kell, I'll go back to you, and then Mr. Cutler after.
All right, I guess I will just then extend the same invitation that I had in the comments, because we will lose community services if an override does not pass. That includes staff, that includes, we can't lose public safety, so it will be library, senior center, services that are critical to other people in the community. And I understand, I think education is very important, but I think you have to balance that because we, the town, have the same issues that the district has as far as health insurance, retirees, staffing contracts. These are also issues, the services for electricity, those sorts of things. Those are also our services. And so if please have a plan to bring this out to the community and plan to take action to see that the community supports the override, because without it, the community loses services. And that's all I'll say. March 28th, and we can figure out a time. So thank you.
Thank you. Quentin?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and ask the question. So I think, Brad, we had in an earlier meeting, I had asked the question about, do we understand the magnitude of, if any at all, the state funding miss is the best probably a way to describe it. Like if the state were fully funding what they're supposed to and all these extra programs that we are required to fund, or they're required to, they mandated, sorry, and now we are, required to support, what is the difference between what the state is currently giving you and what they should be giving? So like, I think transportation is an example of one where from what I understood from an earlier discussion, that that's not fully funded by the state, but yet we have to provide a seat on the bus for every student in the district, which makes total sense to me. And that's a mandate that comes from the state, but yet the state is not keeping up with the funding requirement. So first off, just correct me if I'm wrong about that. And second thing is, have we quantified that miss, that amount that's actually left unfunded by the state that then gets technically pushed back to the towns to fund these mandates? Hopefully you guys heard me.
Yes, historically, the transportation reimbursement has been around 70%. Since COVID, it has gone up significantly higher. And this year, Nancy, we're planning on 90 again, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. 90% reimbursement, in that range.
Yes, and it's 90% of the students that are greater than 1.5 miles from school.
Yes.
So it's about 90% of 80% of our costs, I guess.
Yes, and
Not to make that confusing, but
Are the states required to fund 100% of that, or is that the funding they're requiring is the maximum amount that they're supposed to be refunding? That's the question I have. Like, is there a shortfall in state funding for these mandated issues?
Yeah, so there's definitely a shortfall in transportation because one of the agreements and promises that were made to regional schools when schools regionalized to save money was that if they were going to require a seat for every student on the bus, which again, a comprehensive school does not have to do beyond grade 6, then they would fund 100%. 90's getting close, but again, it only covers about 80% of our students, as Ms. Haynes said, but it's still not 100. And for years, we were getting in the 70% range. So that would be one mandate, as far as I'm concerned, that they're not following through on their promises. The other pieces really do come down to increased special education costs, which we do receive some circuit breaker funding for. And then also mandates such as EL instruction, English language instruction, having to take place at the student's home school, which has required the district to hire additional EL staff because there's not enough time in the day for them for an EL teacher to travel from building to building. So that would be another example of something that is not fully funded. What percent does the state cover? I can't give you an exact answer. But there are certainly things out there that I would classify as unfunded mandates in the states.
Yeah, I think it's really important we quantify that. We're here having a discussion about pushing for an override this year, and from what I just heard a few minutes ago, potentially another override next year. I mean, if that's necessary, we can consider that. But to me, there's money that's not being accessed here. If the state's putting these mandates down, then we should get the funding that we need to. We just can't accept the 70% or 80% or 90% because that shortfall falls into the responsibility of the towns. And, if we're going to go and ask for an override, it's kind of hard. It's a hard ask to say, hey, town,
Right.
can we increase the spending here? Can we increase the funding for the schools? Notwithstanding the fact that the state has given us these mandates and are not supporting them as they should. We really, to be honest, Brad, we need to quantify that. I know we've had this discussion about it. We've talked about the theory, but to me, I'm a numbers guy. I like to know if this was fully funded, if the state had fully funded all their mandates, how much extra taxes are needed, or how much extra support is needed from the towns. We need to know that number.
Yes, good point. And this is Susan Robbins. I also wanted to make the point that, like 15, 20 years ago, the state's Chapter 70 money was covering about half our budget. And that's fallen off over time. And part of the problem is as they keep saying, the flawed formula for Chapter 70 was developed in, I believe, the mid-90s. It didn't account for things like rising special education costs, rising health insurance costs, and a few other things. And they've had a number of committees they've put together to try and revamp that formula to be more real. Oh, and didn't account well for inflation. To make that formula more realistic for how things are now, not in the mid-90s. So that's part of the problem. So we're getting significantly less funding. And now what they do is they give you like $35 a student because we're a hold harmless district, which Nancy could probably explain better, but, which is good, which means just because hold harmless, I believe, means that if our enrollment drops, that our Chapter 70 wouldn't drop, because Chapter 70 is also based on enrollment, and our enrollments drop just like pretty much every other district in the Commonwealth, just because of population demographics. So, but instead of Chapter 70 increasing every year to deal with things like inflation and insurance and special education costs, it pretty much stays the same, and then we get an extra, say, $35 or something a student. I don't remember the number for this year. Which doesn't amount to much. It amounts to like $90,000 or something, which with the size budget we have, that's fairly insignificant. Did I say that right, Nancy?
Yes, it's $30 a student is what the governor's proposal is. So, and we're not alone in this. There's a number of districts across the state that fall into this hold harmless, and the changes they've made have made improvements in the foundation budget. But again, we're still, with the way the formula is calculated, it still doesn't push us up in receiving additional funding. But we don't lose funding. I guess that's the.
We received an additional $92,000 from the state this year.
Yep.
For all the increased needs. So, Mr. Cutler, we can certainly work on quantifying it. I think it would be easier to determine what it would look like if it was fully covered, because being able to parse out what's partially covered right now, especially when it comes to special education, may be difficult. I'm not even sure it's possible, but we could certainly look at, special education and having, when you have to follow an IEP, it's a legal document that must be followed. Oftentimes that has an impact on staffing. So that is certainly something that we can look at. And it is one of the, certainly one of the things that has pushed increases on districts really everywhere. So we can certainly look at that to see what it would look like if it were fully funded. I would think that we would likely benefit from that additional money from the state. But again, right now, we're not even close getting an additional $92,000 this year for FY24 from the state to getting anything close to what we need. And there are certainly, communities out there that got a significant amount of money and they weren't expecting it in some cases, just due to the Chapter 70 formula.
So, just to make sure everyone understands, I support all these mandated issues. I think every kid should have access to a bus ride. I support the special education initiatives. I support these things. I see the responsibility of our district to ensure that those mandated policies are executed in the best way that they can be. Like, optimize it, get the best teachers in there, the best programs. And the state, as they've committed, is required to, and their part is to help us fund that. And to the full, like, don't shortcut us. Don't short pay us, because we're not short on the quality of the education, the quality of the service, the bus services, executing on the IEDs, or the IEP, sorry. We do a great job. We do a great job with that. So I think the state needs to be held accountable. If they require us to do it and we do a great job, the very least we can ask is they hold up the end and write the checks to support us. And we're not going back to the town every 2 or 3 years asking for an override to maintain these programs that the state has mandated on us. So that's my issue. I think this budget process, there's a fundamental flaw in this process if we just kind of accept the fact that the state is not helping us and fully funding what they need to. I mean, that's a critical flaw in this process. If we don't act on that and push back, at least get it heard on Beacon Hill that this has got to change here. Because it's effectively, the state is now pushing the financial burden of these mandates back to the town level. And that wasn't part of the plan when we did regionalization. That's not part of the strategy to improve education in the state. So we need them to be the effective partners that we are when it comes to executing on these mandates, okay? So yes. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I know we've got some difficult discussions ahead of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Appreciate it. Any questions, comments from the committee? I did have a question on some of the utility projections, and just curious how our solar projects have been impacting our budgets over the years? Are we seeing a positive return on that? Because it looks like those lines are going up.
Yeah, we have 3 solar projects that have done what I would consider really well. Actually, 4. We have one on the Ashby Elementary School, and then that school almost zeroes out for electric. We have the panels on the high school, and we have panels newly added in the past couple of years at Varnum Brook Elementary School. And the Varnum Brook one is a smaller installation than was originally planned, but it still contributes towards a reduction. I think we'd see much worse utility numbers if we didn't have these projects. The 4th project is that we are purchasing solar credits through an off-site solar location, and we're applying those. It's in the Unitil territory. So we're applying those to the high school cost of electricity, the Hawthorne Brook and Spalding, and Squanicook, actually. So we take a portion of those credits and apply them to the bills each month, paying for the generation, the offsite generation, which is lowering the bills. I think overall, when I projected the utilities, I really look at actuals where we are, so that hopefully I'm picking up the increases, slight increase in what the utilities are going to give us. We do have a contract for electric for the supplier side of it. So that is working well also. And I believe it goes through the end of 24. So we've been able to only pay something around just over 9 cents a kilowatt hour for that. The increases in the heating, by the way, we did just approve the lighting project, so that's in place. I haven't assumed a savings in that because we'll be paying for the lighting retrofit at Nissitissit and Barnum Brook through the savings. So I haven't anticipated any savings for those 2 buildings. But in the future, once that's paid, definitely be savings there too. I don't know if that helpful.
It did. I just it looked like some sizable increases over the last couple of years, which I don't know if the rates are going up, but the solar usage is counteracting, so it would be a much larger increase otherwise. But it just looked rather sizable compared to even just a couple of years.
I'm not sure what exact. If you're looking at the utilities in general, it'd be the natural gas separate, I believe, on the report. But in the utilities with the electric is also the water and sewer usage. And both, I believe, Pepperell's rates and Townsend's have increased over the past year. I believe that significantly in Townsend. So we had to anticipate those coming too.
Yeah, because I saw the high school's water and sewer 2 years ago was 14,000, and we're budgeting 75 this year. So it's gone from 14 to 21 to we're over budget this year at 43.
Yeah.
And 75 for next year. So that's pretty.
I think Bill, and I can pull some of this data, but I believe the bill that was over the summer was something like almost $20,000 for a quarter for the high school. So we're doing what we can to reduce usage. Obviously, that's one way to help with it, but I mean, everyone's feeling these increases, and I know Townsend had a specific project that came online that impacted this.
No, absolutely. And I think that's part of the issue as well is, expenses across the board are going up. So as the district has employed methods to try to save money, like with solar projects, there's still increases because rates go up, or municipalities are increasing their water sewer rates. So obviously we pay that just like families and everybody else in town have to pay it. So there's increases across the board for everything that the district uses. All right. Any other questions or comments from anybody? All right. So there's a motion on the table. And Nancy, I assume that language was correct. We're good to proceed. Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions. And again, this is step one, so discussions will obviously be continuing. So this is to approve the budget as presented tonight. So Jessica,
Yes.
June,
No.
Lisa,
Yeah. Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan,
Just to confirm, we're voting on the numbers that Lisa read at the beginning with the motion.
that is correct.
Okay, yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. So that is 6-1. That passes. And again, conversations will be ongoing. All right, so thank you everybody for that. Anything else from finance, Lisa? Any upcoming meetings or anything?
No, we do have an upcoming meeting, but I've just blinked the date. I can't. Robin, what was the date? Sorry.
Friday.
Oh, it's Friday. Sorry.
No worries.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Randy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick question. At this point, having approved this budget and knowing that it's going to require us working with the towns on a message to the townspeople on an override, I just want to know, where does that fall, on what committee, or who's going to be working to help get that message crafted and put out to the community?
I would think that should be a combination of finance and communications. Would be my vote.
I just wanted to make sure that didn't slip through the cracks, that everyone's expecting somebody else to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And again, I want to make sure that we're appreciating that this should not and is not district versus municipalities. I mean, we're all in the same boat. And I think as the towns communicate their needs, and we're communicating the needs of the district and the children of the community, that we should work with the towns on that as well and make sure that it's a unified, as much as possible, message that's going out to the community. So Lisa, I don't know if we can get that on.
Yep, that's
Your
fine.
Friday meeting?
I can work with Tom.
Okay.
Tom and I and the rest. Randy, since she brought it up, I think she can help us too. We'll work on it.
Yeah, happy to work with you on that, Lisa.
Thank you.
Quinn, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, does someone have an action item to do the computation we talked about earlier about what your budget would be if it was fully funded and supported by the state versus what it is right now? Should we expect to see that in the next few days or weeks or so?
Superintendent, did you take that, or is Ms. Haynes
This
going to
is
take that?
Susan. Related to that point, several years ago, then Auditor Suzanne Bump was taking this as a project where she was trying to identify all of the unfunded mandates and put that information together. So I don't know how far that project got or if we have access to that, but this was an ongoing effort by her.
Yeah, I would guess, honestly, it's going to take some time. I would say at least a couple of weeks to compile that list. I do know, I know the list that Susan is talking about, the list of unfunded mandates, so that we're able to see what those are and then how they impact us as a district. Again, I think it's going to be easy to look at the total cost of what we're spending versus what we get from the state, rather than having to delve into specific line items, if at all possible. But we will do our best to come up with a number on that.
I appreciate that, Brad, and I appreciate the amount of effort that goes into this, but I see this as a critical data point and a critical analytic that needs to be completed. Well, otherwise we're just going to keep kicking this problem down the road. I've been here now for 4 years, and I've heard this issue, on several. Just looking at some old emails, and we were having very similar discussions a year ago about, the state shortfalls. Ultimately, that's cut into, that's causing this problem, especially if it keeps accumulating year over year. So this analysis that we're talking about, the shortfall versus, the full funding scenario, we need to get that data point in front of us so we can start talking to state reps and to the right people outside of the town and outside of the district. We need to make sure that people hear our voice, but we do need those data points. So I look forward to seeing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Quinn. All right, Lisa, nothing else on finance? I think we're good there.
No, we are good for the moment.
All right, thank you. Moving on to policy, Randy.
Yes, for policy, we have 2 policies up for a first reading. So this is just to get it out for the first approval. The first is JQ-E. This is for fees and ticket prices. This is something that we've been voted on over the years. We've never had it actually attached to a policy. So part of what we're trying to do here is to get this in a policy so that everyone can see it and we know where it is, we can make changes. And the other is we are increasing fees right now with the increased problems with the budget and the increased costs of athletics and some of the other costs that we have. We have put together the policy subcommittee a 2-year ramp up. This was also based on a lot of what current surrounding towns are charging for some of these. So high school sports, ice time has gotten much more expensive. And you can take a look at the policy and see what the proposed increases are for the 23-24 year and then the 24-25 year. Are there any questions on JQ-E? Okay, then I will move that the committee approve JQ-E for a first reading.
Second.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, Jessica.
Yes.
June.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that policy JQ-E is approved for a first reading. That will go out to the public for input.
The second policy is IJOA, which is on field trips. On this one, we have been taking a look at, currently our policy has outside of state, any kind of day trips outside the state, which would include New Hampshire, just over the border, which is a shorter trip than some of the other ones in Massachusetts needing school committee approval. So because we are a border town and we have a lot of trips and sporting events and just regular trips for the high school and things up to Nashua, we have worded this so that there is a 75-mile radius around the high school where these day trips do not need to come to the school committee for approval, kind of reducing the need for a 20-minute trip up to Nashua, whereas a trip over to Springfield for an hour-and-a-half trip doesn't need an approval. So that is all we did in here is we added in that it's a 75-mile radius, does not need school committee approval, except if it's an overnight trip. And that's for even within state overnight trips still need our approval. So I will move that the school committee, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is not a question. So Randy, does that it's kind of like a pre-approval from us, because I was thinking that there was some sort of, because we're taking minors over state lines, the school committee had to approve type of thing. And this is just kind of our blanket approval for us. We don't have to approve trip by trip.
Right.
Is that how
just
that works?
for the day trips, yes. This is kind of like if they have a trip to someplace in state, a field trip. They don't need to get school committee approval for any of those field trips, but if it's up to Nashua, they do. So we're trying to give that approval beforehand through the policy.
Right. So we are approving it, but we're doing it through the policy. It's just not one by one approval.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. So I will move that the school committee approve policy IJOA field trips for first reading.
Second?
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none. Jessica?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes. Sorry, I jumped in there.
No worries. Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that is also unanimous. Just for those members of the viewing audience, these policies will be posted on the district website and are open for comment. And at our next meeting, generally we'll review those comments and then vote on the updated policy if any updates or questions have come in.
And the only other thing I have is we have a policy meeting tomorrow for regional agreement and some other policies, but regional agreement is the big one. We're still looking to hopefully finalize the updated regional agreement and bring it to the Springtown meetings for approval. Again, it's been a while since we've had this in the meetings. So the major changes are we're trying to go to a rolling average. So no town that has major changes in enrollment sees a large jump in 1 year, that it's kind of just a gradual increase. And then there's several other changes, mostly for bringing it up to date on MGL law, as the last major change we made to this was well before the ed reform of 94, I think it was. And so there was a lot of language and procedures that we just needed to bring up to date for the laws. And that's all.
Thank you, Randy. All right, any other business not anticipated in the last 48 hours? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
This is Susan, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I'll give Lisa the motion and Susan the second.
All right.
All right. All right, Jessica,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes, we're adjourned. I appreciate everybody's time, and we'll talk to you all next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.